Hey, Paddy Jerome here from CanRock Mountain Guides. Really excited. I've been out here practicing with my transceivers, getting ready for the winter season. I'm going to start off with just highlighting the simple Berryvox transceiver. Excellent range, 70-meter range on this little bad boy. It has excellent audio and an intuitive LCD screen with nice, clear, super clear icons. The off-send search switch is really nice and bright and is easy to operate with gloves, so I'm really happy with that setup. And then the last thing I like about it is it's got an excellent harness and a detachable tether system, so I can fully detach the transceiver from the harness system when I'm practicing. Really like that. Some of the cons, if you want to look, there's not really a lot of bad things to say about this transceiver, but what I will say is that you cannot perform alternate search strategies. So when things like signal overlap occur or there's interference, it has no capability to do alternate search strategies, and that's just due to the fact that Mammoot's designed this as being a really simple transceiver. The last thing is you cannot disable the auto revert to send, and that's pretty much it for that one. We'll move on next here to the Tracker S. So the Tracker S, some of the pros, it's really inexpensive. It's probably one of the cheapest Avalanche transceivers on the market. I quite like the off-send search switch. It's a dial up on the top here. It's got a lock system, works pretty well. It works pretty good with gloves on. With mitts, might be a little more finicky, but generally speaking, works pretty well. It has a really good, simple harness system with a detachable tether system, which I really like. And I think BCA has done a really good job with that. The last thing I like about this transceiver, even though it's a price point transceiver, it has a good big picture function, which is kind of almost like a scanning mechanism that allows you to see the bigger picture of what's going on with other buried transceivers when you're dealing with multiple burials. So in that respect, the big picture function I really, really like. Last thing, a couple things I don't like about this transceiver. The range is okay. It's around 30 meters, which is functional, but not the best. So that's one thing I'm not too keen on. Second thing, it's got a really pretty small screen. It's about 25% smaller screen. It's an LED screen that's bright LEDs on the screen, but they're a little bit bigger on the Tracker 3 and the Tracker 4. And then the last thing I'll say about the Tracker S is it doesn't have an updatable software system. So it doesn't have a small USB outlet in the back here in the battery compartment that allows you to update the transceiver year to year. All right, Blockdown Recon. So pros, the range is outstanding on this transceiver. It's 60 meters. It has great audio sound, nice and crisp, and it's a highly intuitive screen. Great icons, super simple to see. The marking function's super simple and works really well. Comes up with a little icon of a guy. There's a little circle around him once you've marked it. It's really clear, really simple to understand. Last thing, the updating system is amazing. It's a Bluetooth enabled transceiver that you can pair with your phone once you download the Peeps app, and it's really simple to set up all the settings and update software year to year. Really like this transceiver. A couple things I don't like is that the harness is good, but I'm not super keen on it not being able to completely untether the transceiver. You can untether it, but it's really finicky and kind of ungainly. It's kind of fumbly. I don't like it that much. Last thing I'll say is that the off-send search switch on these transceivers works well with the slider system, the new slider system, but it is stiff on some of the models that I've tried, that I've played with. So works well and it is functional, but not perfect. Moving on now to the more advanced transceivers with greater capabilities. We'll start off with the Berryvox S. This is an amazing transceiver. It has a bitmap display, so it's similar to the way a smartphone is programmed on the screen. It is analog capable in pro settings. It has exceptional range at 70 meters and has really good crisp audio and is easy to use. And controlling the buttons on the interface here, relatively straightforward, even with gloves on. Mitts, not as great, but gloves works pretty well. Some things I don't like about or some cons, I guess you could say, if we're being really objective about it. The transceiver is complex, so it's not the best transceiver for the untrained or the novice user. So it does have a steep learning curve. Although when you buy a Berryvox S, when you take it right out of the box, in its simple settings, like in the default settings, it's actually quite a simple transceiver in full digital mode. The last thing I'll say is that as well about the off-send search switch, which is very similar to the Berryvox that I previously mentioned. It isn't necessarily always intuitive right off the bat, but with a little bit of practice, it works quite well. So I'm quite happy with this transceiver overall. I use this transceiver a lot at work. Next transceiver we're going to talk about here is the new Tracker 4. This is just a slightly updated version of the Tracker 3. It's essentially just it's a new casing, and it has kind of some of the better features of the older Tracker 2 mixed with some of the features of the Tracker 3. So one thing I'll say about this transceiver, it's got a really fast processor. The direction and distance updates are super quick, especially when you're coming in on your find search, which is really important. I really like that about this transceiver. The next thing is the range is good. It's 50 meters. It'd be nice if it was a little bit better, but so the range is 50 meters. Again, I'd like it to be a little bit bigger, but 50 meters is still adequate and it's reasonable. Again, the next feature that I really like about this transceiver is the big picture mode. This is a really good way of scanning the deposit within the range of the transceiver to get a big picture of what's going on with how many buried subjects you have, and then quickly lets you update your mental map of what's going on with respect to dealing with the burial scenario. Okay. Some things I don't like about the Tracker 4. Oh, sorry. The one last thing I wanted to say about that I like about this, it is updatable. So it's got a small micro USB port in the back here in the battery compartment, and that's really good. You want to have the transceiver have software update ability. So the few things that I don't like about it is that it's the signal suppression is functional, but I find it to be somewhat limited. You can only when you press the button and it hits signal suppression, it lasts for about 1 minute. So you really have to like practice with the transceiver and make sure you're really familiar with how how that function actually works. And then the last thing I'll say is that the off transmit search switch, it's quite good. I did mention it's almost exactly the same on the Berryvox, the Tracker S. One thing I will say is that the switch is a little bit on the small side sometimes and can be a little bit difficult to manipulate with cold hands or big gloves or big mitts. Okay, last transceiver we're going to talk about here is the Black Diamond Guide BT. I really like this transceiver. Peeps and Black Diamond's been getting some pretty bad press with their previous generation transceivers, but these are updated, redesigned, and the big issue was the switch. You had to press the button down as opposed to sliding it sideways, and they've resolved that problem. So I'll tell you just a couple things I like about this. First of all, excellent range, 60 meters, simple to use interface, great audio, good icons on the interface. It's an LCD screen, and the icons work really well. They're super clear. It has probably the best updatable Bluetooth system through the Peeps app on your smartphone. Is incredibly simple to use and updates the transceiver for the user. You don't have to bring it to your dealer to get it updated. You can just do it straight up by yourself with your phone. The last thing I really like about this transceiver is the scan function. It has a basic scan function and then a more detailed scan function, which you can set in your settings. And I really like the BD or Peeps scan function. It's very similar to the big picture mode on the BCA transceivers, but I like this scan function even a little bit better. I find it really good for being able to update my mental map as to what's going on with more complex burial scenarios. Okay, last but not least, a couple things I don't like about it is that the off transmit search, as I mentioned with the Recon, it is a little bit stiff. And then the last thing I'm going to say about this transceiver is the analog mode. Has an analog mode on it that you can turn on analog when you've got interference problems or multiple burials or overlapping signals. The analog function is good, like it's functional, but it's a little bit ungainly. It's a bit choppy. I find it a bit clunky. I can make it work for me because you have to actually manually adjust the analog volume, so it's not an automated volume sensitivity feature like the Berryvox transceiver, for example. But if you practice with it and get really dialed, or you have previous experience like an old dog like me who's used to use analog transceivers, then you'll find this works. But it does require a lot of practice, and you definitely want to read your manual.